We begin with the latest developments from Israel and Gaza. The UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has warned countries on the Security Council that public order in Gaza is likely to completely break down because of Israeli bombardment and the lack of essential supplies. Israel's foreign minister has sharply criticised Mr. Guterres, saying his tenure is a danger to world peace. Well, in the last 24 hours, Israel has carried out more heavy aerial bombardment across Gaza in its fight against Hamas. And the fighting on the ground has intensified in the south, particularly around Khan Yunis. Israeli officials say the IDF has surrounded the home of Hamas's chief, Yahya Sinwar. Well, let's cross live now to Jerusalem and our correspondent Yolande Knell. And Yolande, good to have you on this morning. Antonio Guterres there saying there could be a collapse of public order. Israel's foreign minister, however, sharply criticising that. What is the situation like on the ground, and how likely would you say is this collapse?
Well, I mean, certainly, if we look at the fighting that's been going on, first of all, the pictures this morning, you could see smoke was still rising up from the north of the Gaza Strip. But according to one of the main Israeli newspapers here, the Israeli military has now considered that it's got operational control of these two areas, Jabalia in the north and Shaja'iyya in the east of Gaza City, which were considered to be Hamas strongholds. They have been the scene of most fighting in the north. The real attention has gone to Khan Yunis, the biggest city in the south of the Gaza Strip. That's where we've had these very fierce battles going on, we understand, between Israeli forces and Hamas fighters who are holed up there. And Israeli forces saying they're now encircling the house of Yahya Sinwar, the Hamas leader in Gaza. I mean, that is mostly symbolically significant, really, because he and other Hamas leaders who are thought maybe to be in Khan Yunis are really thought to be in underground tunnels hidden well out of the way. But we had Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu coming out saying that this really showed determination. It's only a matter of time before we get him, Mr. Netanyahu said.
And Yolande, just while you're speaking there, viewers have been just seeing the devastation in Khan Yunis and young children walking around looking injured. A lot of the focus today on the humanitarian situation. Is aid getting to those areas where that fighting is intensifying?
I mean, that's a big complaint of the UN, and we had the UN's aid chief, Martin Griffiths, coming out saying that the situation in Gaza is now apocalyptic. And he was really complaining that because people have been crammed down, they've been told to evacuate even from Khan Yunis. Of course, people originally told to move from the north to the south for their safety. Now people have fled into a small corner in the very south of the Gaza Strip, next to the border with Egypt. People are living on the streets, sleeping rough. There aren't enough shelters to go around, and it's very difficult to both get aid delivered to them there, but also aid delivered then to other parts of the Gaza Strip because of the ongoing fighting, because of road closures as well. And so actually Martin Griffiths saying meaningful humanitarian efforts are now virtually impossible.
And Yolande, just briefly before we go, when it comes to food supplies, medical supplies as well, there's been a huge focus on the hospitals out there trying to treat the wounded. Are we hearing anything about how people are managing to survive?
I mean, when I've spoken to colleagues in the past day, they've told me about how they're surviving just on pieces of bread, how they're trying to find little scraps of wood so that they can light fires to try to heat some food for their children, even if it's just toast. It's a really miserable situation and extremely difficult. And I think this is going to be the main focus now in the coming days. A lot of international attention centred on this.
Absolutely, yes, and we'll be following that very closely. Yolande Knell in Jerusalem, thank you for that update.